want to take you back. I think that this is from the 1970s. Milton Friedman's Free to Choose series, where he talked about drug regulation. And folks, the basic things he says here have not changed. I want to play this clip and then talk about it in the context of COVID-19 and coronavirus.
The implications for the patients are that therapeutic decisions that used to be the preserve of the doctor and the patient are increasingly becoming made at a national level by committees of experts. And these committees and the agency for whom they are acting, the FDA, are highly skewed towards avoiding risks. So there's a tendency for us to have drugs that are safer, but not to have drugs that are effective. Now, I've heard some remarkable statements from some of these advisory committees in considering drugs. One has seen the statement, there are not enough patients with a disease of this severity to warrant marketing this drug for general use. Now, that's fine if what you're trying to do is to minimize drug toxicity for the whole population. But if you happen to be one of these not enough patients, and you have a disease that is of high severity or disease that's very rare, then that's just tough luck on you.
It's no accident that, despite the best of intentions, the Food and Drug Administration operates so as to discourage the development and prevent the marketing of new and potentially useful drugs. Put yourself in the position of a bureaucrat who works over there. Suppose you approve a drug that turns out to be dangerous, a thalidomide. Your name is going to be on the front page of every newspaper. You will be in deep disgrace. On the other hand, suppose you make the mistake of failing to approve a drug that could have saved thousands of lives. Who will know? The people whose lives might have been saved will not be around. Their relatives are unlikely to know that there was something that could have saved their lives. A few doctors, a few research workers, they will be disgruntled. They will know. You or I, if we were in the position of that bureaucrat, would behave exactly the same way. Our own interest would demand that we take any chance whatsoever, almost, of refusing to approve a good drug in order to be sure that we never approve a bad one.
So many important points there. Milton Friedman was just absolutely brilliant. And his Free to Choose series, if you haven't watched it, you absolutely should. I want to read a couple paragraphs that I wrote dovetailing in with this. And I quote Milton Friedman from an op-ed I wrote when I was a student at Regis University in 2009 in fall. I wrote in an article on prescription drugs and the cost of drugs as part of the Capitalist Manifesto for Healthcare Reform, a 3-part article series I'd written. I wrote this. Today, according to Pharma, remember this was 2009, the process of discovery to FDA approval takes an average of 12 to 15 years. As such, many people who accept the risks involved suffer during this time. As economist Milton Friedman suggested, quote, the one big development you could make would be to go back to the situation where you have the FDA certify safety, but not efficacy, and let the market itself work in determining efficacy. Indeed, the FDA should test only for safety and allow doctors and consumers to judge efficacy, I write, which would decrease costs substantially and thus allow for cheaper medications. By altering the regulatory process, more innovation and development will result in addition to lower prices. Now, why do I bring this up now? Very importantly, because the Trump administration is looking at how they can cut the red tape. People need to be able to access treatments for this coronavirus and its COVID-19 disease. People need to be able to access treatments and have that process streamlined. Let this be a lesson for the future. We shouldn't be living under a harsh regime where the FDA has to be the vehicle when a cure or a treatment or a vaccine is desperately needed. Now, they can advise and say, yes, this is wise to use, but as far as approval, you should focus on safety, making sure that somebody's not going to be hurt. So you have the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer. She's coming under criticism right now for a statewide order cracking down on prescriptions of hydroxychloroquine, a drug that President Trump has touted could be used, particularly in a combination, to treat the novel coronavirus. The Washington Times reporting that the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs issued an order Wednesday warning physicians against writing prescriptions, quote, without a legitimate medical purpose, and instructing pharmacists to evaluate the legitimacy of hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine prescriptions. Here now you have a governor getting in the way of doctors being able to make decisions on behalf of their patients. And instead you have a governor who is all-knowing and all-powerful interfering. Now the Trump administration is saying, sure, go ahead and try these out, do trial runs. You see Dr. Anthony Fauci on the screen. He has come out saying that he would like to do, if he had this disease, he would like to do a trial run and be part of a trial for this type of a cure, or treatment at least, maybe not cure. Let people do it. Let them work with their doctors taking that initiative. If the drug is safe, and hydroxychloroquine has been used, as I understand it, as part of a malaria treatment, so we know it's safe. It's been used for decades. If it is safe, then allow the drug to go to market. If it doesn't work, if it's not providing the efficacy needed to address coronavirus or some other disease or illness, okay, then let people know. Let the public know, make it possible, make people aware. But that's the extent of what you should go here. You shouldn't be having the government micromanage and making all sorts of determinations. And as you can see, it just gets me so fired up and so passionate to talk about this. Now, I was just tearing up a little bit. So when we talk about patient choice, this is part of it. The doctor-patient relationship is sacrosanct and ought to be sacrosanct in our society. The biggest problem with Medicare for All and big government schemes is that they get in between the doctor and the patient. And that's the kind of thing that Governor Whitmer of Michigan is trying to do in her state. Allow innovation to be done and don't get in the way of the doctor-patient relationship, because you, the all-knowing, all-powerful governor, or FDA, do not believe that it's good for people to pursue, that it's wise. If it's safe, let the doctor make the decision. I have been prescribed medications before for one purpose when that drug was primarily for another, but it can be used in this other purpose. And it works from time to time, depending on the circumstance, depending on the patient. In this particular instance I'm thinking of, it worked for me. Now, that is important to allow physicians a little bit of latitude. And if there's anything we can learn from this, it is that government is getting in the way of treatments. It's getting in the way of the ability for physicians to do what they need to do. And we need to stop it. Get rid of these barriers across state lines. Left and right can agree on this. If a doctor is licensed in Utah, they should be able to come across the border to Colorado and treat patients. Or to do it via telehealth if you live in New York and your doctor's in Florida, or vice versa. Don't have unnecessary government restrictions, and even ones that you might think are necessary can also do much more harm than good. Let this be a lesson as well that the FDA should shift away from both safety and efficacy and focus on safety so that they know that these drugs are safe and you can use them without having particular concerns for the side effects beyond those particularly that you're aware of as a patient making the decision. They're generally safe, allow them, even if they're not providing efficacy in certain ways. Like, in terms of the testing, in terms of the decision-making for the FDA. The FDA shouldn't decide efficacy. Let the private sector and physicians make those sorts of determinations for people. Because people should be, as Milton Friedman says, free to choose. Free to think, free to act, and free to choose. That's the nature, my friends. That's the nature of a free society. And it is why I am a small government guy through and through.